Yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot going on. I'm
I
sure
was
we
gonna say,
can.
isn't there an election going
Well, yeah, there's an election going on, all right.
I'm sure between the five of us, we can fill an hour pretty easy.
Yeah, because, hello, folks. We're back to the Trailer Park Show, and don't go anywhere, because right after we're on, Mike Lee.
Good evening.
And Right Talk with Mike Lee. Mr. James Dickey,
Good evening.
Anthony Wynn,
Good evening.
and of course we all know Gavino and his Longhorn thing there. He's going to be an election judge for early voting. We'll have plenty of info on that. Anthony is with the Texas Asian Republican Assembly, is that correct?
Yes.
Are we growing? Are we going to have an Austin Republican Asian Assembly? Or
We are in the infancy. We are growing. We've had several meetings so far this year. Our best one was our last meeting with Gerald Doherty, and it is starting to form. And I've recently come on to help the communication effort with a new website, Facebook site, email list. So it's definitely growing.
we were texting back and forth about your technical skills. I should have brought my computer now. So you can technical skill on that.
Sure. My computer is my background. I'm in IT. I'm a software consultant, so I can definitely help you with
If
whatever
any of
you
y'all are
need.
out there and you didn't get your flyer this week, I had a little problem with my mailer, which is old school. I just used BCC and put a bunch of them out there, and
Yep.
evidently I blew up my computer.
MailChimp, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but that takes probably.
Well, I'd be afraid to make all those softwares being next to a LULAC nonprofit that needs all that technical help and volunteers, and so maybe we could hook up later on after the show.
You got an office and everything, huh?
Oh yeah. But we're always, LULAC's a national civil rights organization. Many people, best way to explain to them is it's like the NAACP.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of our membership is Mexican America, but not necessarily. We have a couple of councils here in Austin where there are African American councils, and we have councils throughout the country and in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
But we're nonpartisan, and we work with all parties to better our community through education. So,
Well, Terra is still forming, so we don't have a lot of Asians yet. So we're accepting anybody to come into our meetings, and so we are trying to make the outreach happen.
But you're definitely going to be partisan.
Aren't isn't the Asian community the largest growing demographic in Austin right now?
It is the largest growing demographics. We just we had a meeting with Austin City Mayor recently, and they rented out a restaurant in Chinatown, and there were 300 Asians there. He was promoting his Prop 1 bill. They gave a free dinner, and we're hoping to get those contact email lists to hopefully recruit them to be part of the Republican Party.
To your knowledge, is is the Asian population mostly conservative or liberal?
The ones that I talk to are generally conservative. I'm from Vietnam. I came over in 1975, right before the fall of Saigon, and I recently asked my mom, why did we come over? Why would you leave your country and go to a foreign country with two boys? She was pregnant herself, leave our dad there, and she said it was for freedom. She didn't want to live in a communist government where the government controls everything that you do, tells you what you can do. They were so afraid of that they were willing to give up everything they had and leave this country to come to America, start a new life, leave my father there, who fought in the South Vietnamese army, was actually imprisoned for 15 years, re-educated by the communists.
Whether he liked it or not.
Right, and he didn't like it.
Did he come here?
15 years later, yes, we were reunited. I was 17 years old. I was a senior in high school, and they finally reunited us. And I got to know him for about a year before I went off to college in Michigan. But my father actually just passed away in March of this year, or May of this year. And it got me thinking, why am I a conservative? And it brought me back to why I came to this country. And all of our family was around the table. And we were all talking about the election. And nobody was really happy with Trump. But they were like, what are we going to do? We've always voted conservative. And here's a guy that, they didn't really felt were their principles. But they wanted to vote Republican. And I was surprised that all of my family, except for one, my aunt was in Houston. She was for Hillary. But they all had the sense that the Republican Party is about freedom, and the Democratic Party isn't. It's really that simple. If you want a party that is for individualism, freedom, hard work, then you want to be a conservative. You want to be a Republican.
Exactly.
And so most
Well said.
Vietnamese that come here and Latinos, why are you here? Because you're escaping a country where the government has taken over your life for some reason, that has given you a lifestyle that you just can't deal with. And generally those are left-wing, socialistic. For me, it was communistic government. And so inherently, most of my family felt the same way. And so the ones that I've talked to, that are first-generation immigrants, they are conservative. And my wife, she's from Monterey. She's a first-generation immigrant, lifelong conservative, was raised or immigrated to East Texas. All of her family are conservative. They're right now also debating, with all the attention Trump is getting, what to do about their vote, because they don't like some of the rhetoric that has come out of Trump's mind. But they will vote conservative on everybody else. They may have to pick somebody else.
Do you know if she's PRI or PAN or in Monterrey? PRI or PAN or, the different parties.
Well, I don't know if she was that politically affiliated. She came when she was 19 years old.
Okay.
But she's a lifelong conservative. Most of my family are, and I think immigrants in general are conservative. We want limited government. We want lower taxes. We want to live in freedom without government telling us what to do. And it's a shame that the Democratic Party has succeeded to take that propaganda and taken a lot of the immigrants' vote away. But if you look at the issues, what each party's platform is about, I'd like to think that we can convince most immigrants that the Republican platform is the platform that they should be aligning themselves with. And
do you encounter much resistance in your community from a value standpoint as you speak right now?
No, I think a lot of people don't understand politics. I had one aunt that was there when we were talking, and she was a Hillary supporter. But what I realized is she didn't come in 1975. She came 10 years later. She actually might have thought the communists were okay. So I asked her, what was it like to live under a communist regime? She said she hated it. It was terrible. It went to food rationings. They had 4 different currencies. They spent money like crazy. They would print money like crazy and then reinvent money 4 times in the course of 10 years. Similar to what's happening in Venezuela now, in Cuba now, in a lot of failed socialist states. The government takes over and they try to manage the economy. She had enough of it. And so I think she is voting Democratic just because she doesn't know any better. She watches 15 minutes of news a week. She sees what the media portrays. And those people, they don't really understand why we are here as immigrants. And I think as I talk to them, I don't try to push my political feelings, but I try to understand other people's, and then hopefully they can understand mine and maybe change their ways. So I tend to not debate too much, but I do generally try to understand why they feel the way they do.
Now, I work as the community director of outreach and engagement here in Travis County for the Travis County Republican Party. I was drafted in that position by James Dickey. I actually wanted to just be a precinct chair, but that wasn't
They were not
acceptable to
available at
him.
the time.
I'm precinct chair
Get back to you when
161.
one were available.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, Chairman.
Exactly.
Glad to see that you're back hard at work in this
Thank you.
A very exciting campaign.
Yeah, we've got a lot to say grace over. We've already accomplished a lot just in the last month, and now we're in the home stretch. There's 3.5 weeks to go before the election, so not much time.
Well, you don't have a convention to run right now.
Yeah, thankfully there's not another convention to run. There's not another fundraiser to run. Now it's just working with candidates and the precinct chairs to make sure we do block walking, to make sure we do phone banking, make sure we get out the vote that we need to get out for this election in the area. And we do have, fortunately, we've got a lot of outreach efforts going on, and that should help a lot. And we've got great candidates. We have some of the best candidates in Travis County that we've had in years. Maura Phelan as district attorney, she's fantastic and has been really doing a lot of outreach. Gabriel Neela in District 46.
Joe Martinez.
Cesar Ruiz in
yeah.
House District 50. Joe Martinez for sheriff. We Deke Pierce for county constable precinct 2. Gerald Doherty for county commissioner in precinct 3. Paul Workman for House District 47. We've got really a fantastic crew.
So we have a chance to expand on what we've built so far.
That's the goal, absolutely.
Don Zimmerman,
And
city
yeah,
councilor.
Don Zimmerman. Yeah, that's officially a
Yes.
nonpartisan race. But
That's a
I can tell you
nonpartisan.
that the Democrats have not treated it that way for quite some time, and we can't afford to either. It's important to have a voice on the city council so that the debate is not how much to raise taxes, but whether or not you ought to raise taxes, right? At least have one voice on, Now, fortunately, we've got a couple of good people on the council right now. One of them, Don, is up for re-election right now. So I certainly hope the people of his district, District 6, in the Austin City Council, I hope they re-elect him. He has been looking out for their interests.
That's in Northwest Austin, right?
It is.
And there's a sizable Asian population in that area, isn't there?
I believe there is, yeah, and that's, one of the important things we've been trying to get across is that we believe in the principles we believe because we're convinced they're best for everyone, and they will lead to the most opportunity for everyone, the fastest growing economy, which will be best for all. But it is important for us to be intentional about spreading that message, and so I'm very thankful to have you, Michael, and you, Anthony, out there, doing that in your community. So that's a big deal.
Yeah, one of the real common things within the Latino community that is shared with the Republican Party is the abortion, the pro-life stance,
Yep.
And while there are many Catholics that you would say closet Republicans, if you will, you can use the term. But I remember when I used to work at Cristo Rey, the pastor and all the nuns would always come vote, and it was, Father would say, that's the only reason I'm Republican, he said, because of the pro-life position, he says. And then even the Pope says, now you can't be Catholic and, be pro-abortion. But that is, and many of our people are conservatives.
The Pope said that?
Oh, yeah.
Didn't mean to throw it across.
You can't be a Catholic and be, and support abortion.
Well, and right now in the Democrat platform, not only do they support abortion, but they're actually demanding removal of the Hyde Amendment, forcing every taxpayer to pay for abortion.
And I think that going back to the local candidates that you mentioned, that's an increase in the last election, and I think that goes to show the effort that you and Dr. Edwards and everyone has made in the outreach component of the party to the Latino community, because, like I mentioned, they're out there. Our community isn't all Democrat. You have Green Party, you have Libertarian. I had a lot of nephews that were Ron Paul folks.
Yeah.
So so that's why we've seen that, especially in the Donna Dukes or District 46 race, a lot of people are, thinking twice and probably will be splitting that ticket out there. But that goes to all the hard work y'all done and what you've done, Mike, out there. It's not, it's not pleasure territory out there, where you're in the middle of a whole Lions, whatever. But
Well,
somebody's got to stand up for their principles and their beliefs.
in all honesty, when James drafted me into this position, I remember telling him, I said, James, we're going to have to go into some places. We're going to have to show up. We're going to go into some places, and it's not going to be hunky-dory. It's not going to be kumbaya and all that. And we've gone to some places, some outright hostile places. But that's what has to be done.
Yep.
You know.
Step one is people need to know you care, and then you can have conversation about the issues and why you believe what you believe.
And like I say, as a former, probably could say it's still organizer, you have to go down to the grassroots. You have to engage. You have to be part of the PTA. You have to be part of the church social. Just like you participate in your own neighborhoods. That's where you gain trust, and that's where, you see people support certain individuals or candidates because of the person that they are, not necessarily the party they're affiliated with, and that's why, when Pokey challenged and, we talked about it, I told him, y'all need to come out and engage in the community. And y'all did in our education summit and many other things.
Yep.
And that's where, again, and you talk to people out there, and they're not all 100% Democrat, or, a lot of them are open to different options. And
It wasn't quite as hostile as you thought it would be,
Yeah, and we had Senator Corning's staff out there. We had Commissioner Daugherty. What's Commissioner Daugherty doing over here, So that just goes to show
Showed that he cared enough to be involved.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
let's get
it wasn't his district, but the issue of educational opportunity for all kids, that affects all of us, no matter where the particular area is or the particular rally is. And I was very glad that he made the effort to show up for that event and to show how seriously he takes that.
Anything for the legislature, Mr. Dickey, that you look forward and maybe working on?
There are a few things. School choice is a big thing coming up for this session, and we need to have a balance between educational freedom, which most people don't realize how much educational freedom we already have in Texas. That as parents, you can choose pretty much any education for your children. That's fantastic. Now what we need to do is find a way to increase the educational opportunity so that there's a lot more awareness about it and there's a lot more usage of it. One of the things that's been really interesting, the Texas Public Policy Foundation's done a lot of great research on this, is that once a school district sees about 6% of their students leaving and choosing other options, the school district actually gets a lot better. Competition works, right? And it's not surprising, right? It's a very natural defense mechanism that if you're losing customers, which for a school district, it's students and their parents, right? If you start losing customers, for a little while you can pretend, oh, well, those are just, those are the oddballs and that's just a one-off, that's the thing. But pretty soon, after a decent amount, and the studies show about 6%, after about 6% of them leave, all of a sudden the schools wake up and realize we better get better or else we're going to be in big trouble. And it ends up, and there was some neat work done on Washington, D.C., had some great school choice until the current administration shut it down.
Except for their own kids.
Yeah, well, but in that study, they found that whether the kids chose to leave or their parents chose for them to leave or not, they ended up better after school choice happened. And the other thing that's really interesting is teachers actually end up better off, because the more the options there are, then that means the more options of an employer that the teacher has. And so some of the studies show that teacher pay actually increases, and certainly teacher opportunities and flexibility, and it works out to be a better system for everybody except the unions and the centralized bureaucrats or the
Well,
administrators.
when I was working with AISD to create the all boys and all girls school, we had the opportunity of traveling all over to 5 or 6 different gender schools. And one of the interesting things that I found out was that this school choice movement isn't really a corporate movement. It's more a parent movement, because they are the ones that are driving that movement. And,
Absolutely.
And there are organizations that only provide them resources like Libre and others but that's what I found very interesting, that it's not, for example, a party-driven, curriculum agenda. No, this is something that parents themselves are making those choices, especially even those within the public schools. You have Southwest Kids, you have UT Elementary, IDEA, and so that's what because a lot of people say, oh, no, school choice is a Republican thing. No, it's not. It's a parent-driven thing.
It is.
It really is. Y'all are into education as well within your community.
Oh, yeah. And my wife actually works at ACC, but she is doing a study about why inner city schools fail. And originally the study was just a demographic study. They're looking at the numbers. But what they did was kind of ingenious. She applied to be a substitute teacher, got the credentials, and now she actually goes and visits Austin schools, Round Rock schools, Pflugerville schools, and substitutes as a teacher to see what it's like on the inside. When she was doing the demographics, people would know that she's coming, and they would put on a good face. But now she actually subs in, and she actually just got off 2 months at Martin Middle School here. One of the worst schools in Austin.
My alma mater, all right.
Yeah. And she would tell me stories that, it's changed her viewpoint. A lot of people say schools are bad because of the teachers or they don't have money. Well, she's been doing this for a couple of years now, and it's not about the money. You can pay them double. It's not going to make them any better. She understands that it's the environment that they're in. It's the parents. If you have money, they usually don't go to Martin Middle. They'll go to a private school. But this study, now she's in a Pflugerville school, and it's much better environment. The study is not published out yet, so I can't really say too much about it. But it's given me a lot of insights into the differences between AISD and Pflugerville and Round Rock. That tells me that what school choice is about is, one of the only ways that you can actually affect change in these schools. Because if you take the kids out, they are losing funding, and they will change their ways.
I've had occasion to do some substitute teaching myself in Houston. And what I found was that the most important component that seems to be missing was discipline. Teachers spend a lot of time trying to control the classroom to create conditions where they can actually teach. And I guess in an oversimplified sort of way, my view is that if they can improve the discipline, they can improve their teaching skills. They can actually practice their craft.
You're absolutely right.
And you can't do that if you can't practice your craft.
One of the things that my wife is really good about is disciplining the kids. She has like a natural ability. I don't know how, but she doesn't take any BS from anybody. She sets her expectations. If the kids don't follow them, she calls security. And she's written up a number of kids where before they've never experienced that. A lot of the AISD teachers, they just let the kids get away with murder, and she doesn't tolerate that. They offered her a job, but she can't commute the hour from Pflugerville down
to
there.
me, that's where I see that the school stops at 5. If you do have children that, you show that dysfunction or whatever, I would say that, as a teacher, if I would think, or the institution would bring in the parent, if for whatever means, because you can bring in parents, and a lot of times when you bring them in, it's because you have to do it under some kind of justice system thing, But if you were to bring them in and make that effort, as opposed to, well, if they don't make the effort, I'm not going to make the effort. This kind of ping pong going on. I think that because a lot of times parents, for example, in my case, maybe it's different now, but I was raised by my grandmother, so there was no expectation of her or to go to a PTA meeting, for example, much less understand where I was going and when I was not going. So today we still have that kind of situation, but I think that because education has become more competitive now, you have your charter schools and your public schools are having to be more competitive. That's one of the things that charter schools do, and that's why they're successful. So I think that in the public schools, that effort needs to be made in order because at the end of the day, I went to a building master plan thing the AISD is putting on, and all the inner city schools are at 50%, 47% capacity. So what's going to happen with all those schools once they become vacant? Allen's on the cells.
How many we just closed down here in Austin?
Yeah, but when I was talking to them, they said, well, that there's a law that says that before we sell it, it goes to a charter school. And they were telling me that IDEA has already indicated they want Allen, that they're looking at Allen. So, but that just goes to. While I see a lot of studies of what the reasons of why not, I really don't see studies that say this is how we need to cure it. So I think that once we begin addressing, because our kids are bright. Even I'll use the example of the drug dealer. He's a financier. He's a scheduler. He's a stock. He knows inventory. But he knows all these skills, but using them in the wrong way. But they're smart, astute individuals. We just need to change that product that they're focusing all these skills on. And a lot of times that's very challenging, especially if you're working with kids that you really don't have an understanding of the culture or whatever. Yeah, and until we get more of our people educated and be those teachers, will we see some improvement.
I could throw one thing in here. Charter schools are not elected. Their board, like AISD, is elected board.
Right.
So if there's something wrong with AISD, then whose fault is it? We elected your friend into my district down there. And then when I get in an argument with, he always wants inclusion and diversity. I told him, no, math, reading, science. This is what we have to include all these people. And then I pointed out Southwest Key.
Yeah.
Almost, 90% Hispanic?
Yeah.
And highly,
And
they all go to college,
now
stuff
that
like
you
this.
mentioned that, maybe that's why many parents do leave, because they don't want to be part of the political.
The political stuff that
They're more
AISD pushes.
concentrating and educating their child, which is the best academic store out there,
Right.
and that's it, bottom line. They're not worried.
To the, that's what Paul Sedina,
But you're talking about choice, aren't you?
Yeah, choice.
Yeah.
Oh, Superman.
Yeah, he said, you can't just stick to curriculum.
Yeah.
But if they don't, whose fault is that? Because we elected these people.
But it's interesting, around here, they criticize all the charter schools, IDEA,
Yes, they do.
Southwest Keys. The only one they don't criticize is UT Elementary.
Yeah,
And
I
it's a
wonder what
charter
that
school.
is.
It's a charter school.
A very successful one too, if I
Very,
heard
very
right.
successful one, yes. That we happen to be charter members of our neighborhood association is.
So you asked, what is the solution?
Well, yeah,
Political thinking minds here.
yeah. Well, that's one.
Well, the Freedom and Liberty and Responsibility Party says the right thing to do is to enable as many opportunities as possible, and then trust the parents to make the best choices possible. Now, is every parent going to choose what you wish they would choose? No, of course not.
Hold on
Right.
here. Aren't these the same parents who voted for the school board that's screwing up ASD?
Well, but there's several layers difference between I voted for a school board member, the school board member voted for a superintendent, the superintendent hired the principal hired the teacher, and and is running the school, and the school's not being run great, right? Well, there's so many different layers there. There's not a lot of accountability. The easiest thing for accountability is just say, okay, I'm going to take my son and put him somewhere else.
Well, and of course, we've already seen how sometimes the electorate can elect some strange characters.
I will be the first one to agree that the voters are not always right. Yeah.
They don't pay attention or something.
I'll give you my insight because I've thought about this quite a bit. And when you look at the country, pretty much universally, every inner city school underperforms. Washington, D.C. spends the most per student, like $35,000.
I can do it for half price.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you look at the schools in the suburbs, they generally outperform. Round Rock, Cedar Park, Pflugerville. So why is it? And yes, my wife is doing the study, and she can't really make a conclusion, but I come from the business world, and it's kind of simple, I think. I think it's about focus. I think when you get too big, AISD has how many kids that they have to?
84,000.
Yeah. Well, Pflugerville only has 20,000. Round Rock might have 15,000. They should probably split up AISD into smaller, manageable size and see what happens. When you have an administration that is so large, you just can't focus on the students as what's happening in your local areas. So maybe they should just keep them to the size of a suburb and make them accountable. Because when you focus on kids on a local level and you remove all that bureaucracy, I think it can only lead to good things.
Absolutely. Well, and over the last 10, 20 years in Texas, spending on administrators has gone up at many times higher than the increase in the number of students or increase in spending on teachers and increase overall. The spending on administrators, the increase in the number of administrators and the pay for administrators has been a major driver of increased costs. I mean, we're spending more. I mean, that's one of the things that bugs me is people say, well, public education, you don't have school choice. Instead, just spend more on public education. Well, that's like saying, don't change the oil in your car, just, put more gas in, right?
I'd like to go back
It's apples
slightly
and oranges.
for a
right?
minute here. Westwood High School, that's ASD, isn't it? And they're performing well. Anderson High School over off Mesa Drive, they perform rather well.
Bowie.
So I hear what you're saying about the larger, but there's more to it than that, I think.
And then you have Eastside Memorial on the other side.
Well, generally,
But I agree with
there are a
you.
few good schools. Yeah.
It's too
Well, then
big.
why is Eastside Memorial so bad while Bowie is so
Because
good?
it's too big. Right now, that's one of the questions I ask. It's interesting that they're losing so many students every year,
Yeah.
yet my taxes aren't going down.
No, they're not.
The staff isn't going down. I think they're increasing. I don't know how many
And their curriculum sure isn't
$100,000
changing.
positions they have, So it's just become too bureaucratic, and like you mentioned, if you just focus on teaching the academics and just stick to that,
That's what I suggest.
The child would be a better,
Well, I do know this is one of our winning issues along with the like pro-life. And I do know
Absolutely.
that the other party just refuses to even discuss it.
Yeah.
It's ISD, period. Everything else is out to destroy education.
Yeah. Well, and that's
Just extreme
that's
view
because
to
of
the anti.
I know they're very anti-charter school.
They're anti-everything. There's only one way. Their way, their teacher union, their curriculum, period. That's all they refuse to discuss.
I mean, that goes to the, do you believe that there are some, magically wise individuals in Washington, D.C. who can tell us all how to live the best way that
It
we
ain't their
all ought to
kids.
live?
Get the hell away from my kids.
Right? Or does each parent, each kid, each family have its own unique situation that needs its own unique solution that they are best at finding? We believe the latter. We believe that if you maximize opportunity and you stay out of people's way, they will find the best solutions. And That
Should've brought my
as opposed-
Democrat friend on down here tonight. He could've-
Yeah, and that
That's
I mean,
okay.
and that's the problem. You know, that's why we started as a republic. That's why we started as a federalist country, is because each state knew that there shouldn't be one centralized government solution for everything. That each state would be different. And even within the states that there are differences. And it's important that we stick to that and remember that. And the more that we try to come up with a Washington, D.C. solution, and this is not, both parties have had issues with this, right? I mean, No Child Left Behind was a big expansion of federal education standards, and it's got no business being a federal issue. It should be state and local.
What do they call it when we had the school board on here? A capture fund?
Recapture.
Recapture?
Yeah, so that's the Robin Hood stuff, and
Another
that's
thing they complain
crazy.
is bad, but they've already got how much money per student down here?
They already spend more than any other area. So more money is not going to make the Austin schools better.
No.
Again, resources contributes to enhancing academic achievement. If you have that, for example, many kids in our community after 5 o'clock, they have no internet, because the internet at home is $45-50 a month.
I see what you're saying,
So they might have a phone, but it's very limited. So
Yeah,
that
but I would argue one book from the library a week would do more kids better than unlimited internet access.
oh yeah, no, and definitely that's
And-
true. But
and that's completely free.
But we're talking about a competitive game here, So while I'm going to have my eyes stuck in a book, my competitor's already, technology, he's taken off. So
Yeah.
that's the part I'm talking about from a competitive climate. It's like me digging a hole with a shovel, whereas the guy down the street brings a tractor with a gulp. So, but those resources are
I wish you were here too, Robert.
are good contributions.
You got a question?
We worked with Yale about 10 years ago, with Yale University, and because they have a program in the summer where they send their students to minority communities, neighborhoods, high schools, so that students that are at that academic level can begin interacting with students that look like them, if you will, that are going to a Yale University. So we started that process back in the day, and I think we had 2 students out of the 10 that went through that program, because Yale said if you have any students that graduate with X GPA, they'll get a 4-year scholarship, and
Wow.
2 of them did get it, and they went. One of them's a lawyer, So, but it's those kind of connections and resources that if they're provided, like I tell a lot of people, it's not the issue of racism or neglect, or not being. The issue is opportunity. If you give them the opportunity, they will succeed. And a lot of times that's where the blockage comes, is that there's the opportunity's not there.
I've gone to several Texas Asian Republican Assembly meetings, and at the first one, the guy who spoke was Andy
Wynn.
Andy Wynn from
From
Tarrant
Tarrant County.
County?
Yep.
he spoke of America as being an idea of a place where you can go where you have freedom and opportunity, which gets back to your point about opportunity. Now, I think we all kind of agree that education is the key. And if education is the key, to me, that should be the number one issue to be addressed by anybody. Because we can solve that issue, then that can take care of a bunch of other problems, social problems and other things. But I haven't heard, I've heard one candidate mention education about charter schools. And that was Trump. The other candidate hasn't said a word about it. And so I can only assume that there'll be more of the same.
They won't.
We just throw money at the problem, to throw money at it. And that doesn't fix it.
They get contributions from the unions, so
Yep.
you wanna raise their.
Don't get him started over there.
Well, and now that Robert's out there, he's heavily involved with ISD. He's actually involved with his kids' upbringing. He works at the airport, but PTA is the only way to go. And but even he's can see that all these people are leaving these schools. You've got how many properties they put up for sale, some buildings and some raw land, and they just don't seem to figure out. These are really smart people down there. They can't figure out why nobody's, why all these people taking their students are going somewhere else. And Paul Sedini, I think his name was, I argued with on Facebook, and he just doesn't seem to get it. Reading, math, and science. Forget all this other stuff. It seems so simple.
Yeah, it does.
I don't know. Anyway, appreciate you, Robert. Send a question if you want. He's been on the show once or twice.
What was that?
Robert, customer.
He was here that other day when we had somebody on with his family. I forget who it was.
Well,
he's,
again, we can all talk about all these issues till we turn blue, but if we don't get out there and vote,
Right.
this election
Exactly.
day, it's all for none.
Well, and we are more fortunate than most because we are right here in Austin. So we've been talking about school choice and educational freedom and educational opportunity. Well, today there was a House hearing
Right.
on school
The voucher,
choice
School voucher.
down at the Capitol. And so those of us who live in the Austin area, go ahead and sign up on the Texas Legislature website, and you can find out about the hearings that are coming up, the issues you care about,
That's right.
and go down and testify. Tell the senators and the representatives your thoughts on the issues you care about. You can have a really disproportionate impact on issues in Texas because you happen to live here. And session's about to start. In January, session will start.
And you're right. We are fortunate because a lot of people travel from Lubbock, from El Paso, all over the
Right.
state just to
I gotta
come
go one step further.
to a hearing.
You don't even have to testify. Just show up.
Yeah. Just to be there.
Just to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That actually makes an impact.
It does.
Maybe not as big as testifying, but it's still something.
Well,
Yeah.
Go in, sit around for a
when
few
we
hours
were
and
out
split.
there, Senator Wentworth, we
Yeah.
made a connection, and that
Temple.
was one of the seats that brought single-member districts to Austin,
Sure was.
Texas. A lot of people don't out
One-
there in
one of-
the-
one of our
in the-
party,
in
of
our
course.
in our
Yeah,
media
sure, he was.
area
Yeah.
won't go there, but he's the one that really.
He's the one that made
Right.
it all happen.
Yeah, because the second time, once he announced we had filed the bill, and now say we as LULAC, when he joined LULAC, the mayor Leffingwell came out and said, it's going to be on the ballot. We're going to put the ballot, So that was a good 6 years, but it finally came through. But a lot of times, it's, be careful what you ask for because, man, some of those council members, they're untouched. They're just
You're untouchable now.
they're not. If you don't live in their district, they really don't want to have anything to do with you, and that's.
Well, yeah, and that's got pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
They are right that the council is geared to be representative by district. So they are right to put the needs, desires, wants, interests of their constituents first.
Oh, definitely.
But it still has to be a functioning city, right? So there's a balance there. And some of the council people will be really good at that, and some will be less good at that. And hopefully the voters will pay attention and see which are which and replace the ones that are not good at doing that. But
There's a lot of down ballot candidates. That's the other thing.
There are.
Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that because I know there's a big push in educating voters about that. Just don't vote straight ticket and I'm gone. I'm through.
yeah, in the November election, especially being a presidential year, obviously, everybody hears about the presidential candidates and has probably made up their mind about the presidential candidates. But I would encourage you to talk to your precinct chairs, check out the party's websites, check out the Travis County actually has a really good website, votetravis.gov. Yeah, votetravis.gov. And if you go there, you put in your own name and your own birth date, and it will show you where you can go vote. But it also will say, view my ballot. And if you do that, you can see the entire ballot just for you. So if you live in the Austin city limits, there's Proposition 1 on the ballot, which is this big transportation initiative that the mayor's been pushing that I've heard such terrible things about. And then there's
Bicycle lanes.
there are, depending on
Millions
which
of dollars worth of bicycle lanes.
exactly, and 27 miles of roads taken away because that will help traffic.
Gotta put those bicycle lanes somewhere.
Well, Pflugerville, I went to training today, and they mentioned Pflugerville, 24 propositions on the
Yeah,
ballot.
24 propositions, right? So
people
depending
in
on where you live.
Pflugerville, vote early.
Exactly. And you got to pay attention to those ones in Pflugerville because some of them directly contradict each other. So you got to be really careful about which ones you vote for. But pull up that ballot and really study it so that when you show up to vote, that you're already prepared and you've made up your mind. And don't worry if there's an issue that you can't make up your mind about, or there are candidates that you can't decide between. Feel free to leave that blank. It's not like the SAT where you get penalized for empty empty votes. And leaving.
Hold on, Del Valley Robert says vote no on Prop 1.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more.
He's a
And in
big-time
fact,
activist out there,
the
so
Travis
that's what he's
County
doing.
Republican Party has actually passed a resolution strongly, unanimously opposing Proposition 1. So we just don't see how the argument of removing 27 miles of road would somehow help.
That's a lot of bicycle lanes right there.
And not only that, but there really is some significantly misleading information about the ultimate cost.
And I was going to mention, not to even
Well,
mention
they
the
have
cost.
some of the cost
20
items
years.
have no cost designated at all. They have
Right.
guesses.
Quite a lot of the
Convenient?
Yeah, there's not enough money in the estimate of cost to do what they're talking about doing. So there clearly is an assumption of a bunch more money coming, and the estimate of future paybacks on the bonds assumes that money used to pay off other bonds is kind of free and just hops over to these bonds, and that's not an appropriate way to
No.
estimate the cost of something.
Hold on, I got to put this out here.
No.
Robert said, damn, he agrees with a Republican.
Of course you do, because we have the right ideas. So that's wonderful. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
You were going to mention something about the Pflugerville propositions.
Oh, yes, I live in Pflugerville, and I've studied all the propositions. You can go online. I'll do a brief on my precinct
How
chair.
much time did it take you?
Well, there's another group that's going one by one every day and debating each one of them. I can say that you can vote no on Pflugerville Prop 1. We have a mayoral race, and I'm endorsing Brad Marshall. He is a conservative, fiscally responsible. I've met all the candidates. I've been to a lot of Pflugerville forums. There's also a city council race, and I'm endorsing Doug Wise. He's running against a 19-year-old UT kid. He's actually a Vietnamese kid, but he's a Bernie Sanders supporter, and I've been to a number of forums with him, and I can't advocate him. So Doug Wise in Pflugerville and Brad Marshall is who I'm endorsing
Great
for
guys.
my precinct.
I'm going to have a question here about this voting. Early voting, can you vote anywhere?
You can.
Travis
And this is
County,
a
yes.
general election, not a primary. So
anywhere.
for any of the voting, you can vote at any voting location within your county. So if you live in Travis County, you can vote at any Travis County voting location. And again, if you go to that votetravis.gov, it's a great place to look up voting locations near you. But if you happen to see one on your way to work, or you happen to see one near your school, you're welcome to go vote at those as well.
How about election day? Hold on, how about election day? Can
No,
you
no,
vote
no, no,
anywhere?
no.
Early
same
voting.
thing.
Early voting starts
and Election
when?
day, you can vote.
Early voting
October
starts
24th.
when? October 24th, right?
October 24th, which is just next
Vote early,
a
vote
week
often.
from
I know
today.
you don't want me to say this, but
Go ahead.
and you don't need an ID to go vote. You,
That was up
Okay, well that's let
you,
me.
you can take if you take an ID, it has to be a Texas issued ID, or your military, or your
Yeah.
gun
But see,
gun
Jack-
ID.
So
Which
actually
I just got
on
today, it says veteran on it. You got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Fine.
And if you
on
don't
that
have,
same page,
Come on, let.
yeah,
all
but
right.
if you don't have either one, you get to sign a paper, and you get to bring either a bill, a current bill, or some kind of document. But you get to sign that paper, and then you're good to go.
yes, on that same page at votetravis.gov, they have all the details, including all 7 photo IDs that you're allowed to use. And then if you can swear that you were unable to obtain any of one of those 7 photo IDs, then there are other items you can bring, like a utility bill or something, that has your name and address on it. If it has a photo, it has to be an original document. All those details are available on that votetravis.gov page. And
Birth
and you can get
certificate,
all
it
the
has to
details
be
on it.
original.
Yeah,
It's also
so it's got all
acceptable.
those details on that.
Yeah.
That's one
So-
another one of those comments. Just I can't understand why that party goes so wild about this voter ID thing.
Well,
Yeah.
we'll see, because one of the reasons that we're citing is that it prevented people from voting and whatnot. So now there is no reason why not to vote. So hopefully this will
If you
show.
can't figure out how to get an ID, you don't need to be voting anyway.
Well, and I can tell
didn't
you,
say that.
the funny thing was, after the voter ID law was implemented in Texas, minority voting went up. So the argument that this was in some way if it was an attempt to reduce minority voting, then it was a terrible attempt because it backfired phenomenally, because it actually increased minority vote turnout actually increased. Frankly, if you are over 18
There we go.
and a
Oh, we're
registered
getting there.
voter. Yeah, if you are over 18 and a registered voter,
Keep it up.
and a U.S. citizen and not a felon, right? You're allowed to vote. The odds of you not having any one of those 7 photo IDs is minuscule. The Statesman and a couple other and the Houston Chronicle, newspapers who would love to find examples of voters being turned away. The Houston Chronicle found one who was a lady who had lived in Texas for 5 years after Hurricane Ike and just had never bothered to get a Texas driver's license. Well, that's actually illegal, right? Once you're a resident, within 30 days, you're supposed to switch and get a Texas driver's license. So she was breaking the law on that, and they were complaining about the fact that she couldn't vote because she didn't have a Texas driver's license, and she waited until the very last minute until it was actually too late to give her time to get a Texas driver's license. Well, that was a pretty bad example. And then the only example that I saw that the Statesman came up with was a guy who didn't like the name who was on his birth certificate, and so he registered his driver's license with a different name than what was on the birth certificate. He didn't want to switch. And so he wanted to vote on a name that was different than his ID said. I mean, that's how extreme and how weird and how unusual the case was that they had to come up with, to come up with someone who they could actually find.
Right. One thing, both of us haven't worked elections here in Travis County. I can speak for that. 8% of the people, every time they walk in, without even ask, produce an ID.
Yeah.
Okay. My only issue with that was back in the day, like I mentioned, if you're going to require it, make it available free. I mean, they do it. They do it in Mexico.
The voter ID is free. If you have no driver's license or anything else, you can go get a voter ID from DHS for free.
Right, but you have to surrender your license under that one.
No, that's if you don't have a license. If
you
you have a
don't have a
license, you already have ID.
You already got ID.
But if you have a license, well, I don't know. There was something about that law that I
What?
well,
All right, we're going to come to it.
All right,
Huh?
all right.
You got a few minutes?
but anyway,
Go ahead. That's your stuff.
You
I
announce
can't read
you
that.
announce-
Oh,
you
yeah,
announce-
this Friday morning,
out the Latino vote.
We're reaching out, and it's a nonpartisan event, and I invite you and James. I think you said you were going to be there. You can be there, so I think I'm going to have all 4 different party chairpersons there: Libertarian, Green Party, you, and the Democrats.
That's
that want
great.
to have But it just goes to show that even within our community, there's that diversity. And it's important that candidates from different parties make themselves available in the community. And this is one opportunity that we're having this Friday, at 8:30 in the morning. We're having Dana de Beauvoir come out, be our guest speaker, and explain to us this interpretation of this ID law versus no ID law. So it's also good networking. Like I said, we'll see a lot of people from the community. I've invited all the candidates on the
Be
ballot.
real good networking if it's anything like the past
Oh yeah,
ones.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we invite you. It's Friday at 8:30 a.m. this week at
Free tacos?
Angie's Restaurant at 1307 East 7th Street. Dana de Beauvoir will be our guest speaker, and we'll have many of the candidates that are running for office there present so that you can meet them and that you can also learn what is it you need to take to vote this coming election. And they are also still needing workers.
Yeah, we're going to put that up too, I believe, if we can, Ma. We got 3 minutes left.
Yeah, election workers for the
It's important to
election.
be involved in the election. Even if it's, I used to just go to the substation because back then you could go after work. You gotta do something. Just going out there and be part of it somehow.
Yeah, it's actually really enjoyable.
Oh, it is.
I really appreciated working the election because you got to meet a bunch of people. You got to see the behind the scenes, all the effort that goes into trying to make sure that the votes are protected and that everyone gets the right ballot and all of that kind of stuff. It's really neat.
I miss the old days with the paper at Central Counting there and all the excitement at Central Counting when you used to go down there. It was, yeah, that's next. Oh, you got to take off yet, Mike? No, you got a couple more minutes.
No,
2 minutes.
that's an ad for Come and Talk It
It's
on
coming next week. He
Sundays.
usually has to leave early
Mike
to go be on the
Cargill.
show.
Mike
'cause
Cargill.
we got 2
Oh.
minutes left.
I'll email you
Mike Cargill's come and
the
talk it.
information on it, but
Yeah, what's coming on? Go ahead and say something.
It's Mike Cargill's come and talk it.
Oh, that's not your show.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah, no, that's not his
Michael,
show.
Michael.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's Michael.
I
not
have one
Mike.
announcement.
Okay.
Thursday, I'm also Secretary Treasurer of FACONA. It's an organization nonpartisan for the neighborhoods in Pflugerville, and we're hosting a candidate forum. Caesar Ruiz will be there, his candidate, the commissioner at Pflugerville Justice Hall, 7 to 9. And on Thursday, Wells Branch is having a candidate forum for some of our other local candidates.
Gabriel in your district?
No, he's he's just south of me.
Oh, okay.
But I wish he was. Yeah.
Oh, what's his name?
We're down to a minute, so
Caesar.
Caesar.
Yep.
so,
All right.
Well, as always, gentlemen, it's been a
Yeah, let's
pleasure to
go
be
down
with
here.
you.
Take
Beautiful.
something.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and stay tuned next because Michael Lee's going to be coming on in about 3 minutes.
Yep.
And that's always
Absolutely.
going to be another exciting show. We'll be
I
back
want-
next week, and we plan to have at least some of the candidates on here. Next week will be first day of early voting,
Early vote.
and there will be some coming on too. So anyway, folks, we do want you to hang around, and I hope you enjoy this kind of stuff because we got more of it coming on. I thank our guests for being on,
My pleasure.
and Gavino, you're going to be back with us probably next week.
No, I'll be working. Early
That's
vote.
right. You won't be here for
That'll
you'll be
my
early
first-
voting.
That's my first day early vote.
Yeah, that 15 seconds. I do appreciate y'all watching, and tune us in next week. Stay tuned for Right Talk with Mike Lee. Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye, everybody. Hey.
That was good.
Oh, you can't leave yet. You got to help me with the takedown.